The small hum of the space station was the only sound in Jason's quarters as he leaned back in his chair. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, glittering against the black canvas of space. Life aboard the research station was usually quiet, predictable, and, in Jason's opinion, a little boring. He had grown used to the routine: check instruments, log reports, and occasionally repair equipment. But today felt different. There was a tension in the air he could not explain. It started with a sudden vibration under his feet. Not the usual minor shakes of the station's engines, but a rapid, irregular pulse like something, or someone, had forced the airlock open. Jason jumped from his chair, heart racing. The lights flickered. His hand instinctively went to the small plasma tool at his belt. Before he could reach the airlock, the door to his quarters burst open. She appeared in the doorway, not a human, though humanoid in shape. Her skin shimmered with a soft silver glow like moonlight reflecting on water. Her eyes were wide and bright, almost luminescent, darting around the room with urgency. She did not speak at first. She just looked at him, her gaze sharp, commanding, desperate. Jason froze. He had expected intruders, maybe a malfunctioning robot, even a stray supply drone, but not this. She was unlike anything he had ever seen. I'm Jason," he stammered, taking a cautious step forward. Who are you?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she moved quickly, almost gliding, and closed the distance between them. Her movements were fluid, graceful, but urgent. She reached for a small device on the wall, a communications pad, and touched it with fingers that shimmered like liquid metal. Sparks flew briefly, then the pad sprang to life. "This station, it's not safe," she said finally, her voice musical but edged with fear. "They are coming, you must help me." Jason blinked, trying to process her words. "Who's coming? What do you mean?" "No time," she said sharply. Her eyes scanned the room again, restless. "If they find me here, the entire sector will be lost. Only you can stop them." Jason's mind raced. "Stop who? Stop what?" She pressed the pad to her chest. A holographic map burst into the air, displaying not stars and planets, but strange symbols and blinking red dots. Jason had no idea what most of it meant. The dots moved in patterns that suggested fleets, attacks, trajectories, things he barely understood. "They want to take everything," she said, her voice rising. "Everything we have worked for destroyed. I cannot fight them alone. You human, you are the key." Jason's pulse quickened. He had read about humans being underestimated in the galaxy, but never imagined anyone would call him a key to an interstellar crisis. His life until now had been quiet, unremarkable. He was a technician, not a hero. I don't even know how to fly a ship outside the docking bays," he protested. She turned to him fully, and for a brief moment, Jason saw something in her eyes that made his chest tighten. Raw fear, but also unshakable determination. "Then learn," she said simply. "There is no choice. Either we act now or everything ends." Jason swallowed hard. He could feel the weight of her words pressing down on him. The room suddenly felt smaller, the walls closer. And despite the danger, he felt a strange pull toward her, a combination of curiosity, responsibility, and awe. Before he could respond, alarms blared across the station. Red lights flashed, casting the room in a harsh glow. Jason's stomach lurched. The station's security system must have detected her entry, or worse, the enemies she mentioned were already here. "They're here," she said, moving toward the exit. "We must go now. I will guide you." Jason grabbed his belt, securing the plasma tool. "Guide me where?" "To the shuttle bay. We don't have time for questions." Despite his fear, he followed. The hallways of the station seemed endless, but she moved with purpose, almost knowing every twist and turn. Jason noticed how her fingers brushed against the walls, leaving faint, shimmering trails that vanished instantly. There was a strange energy in her, one that made him both nervous and strangely comforted. As they ran, Jason tried to process everything. Who was she? Why did she need him? And most importantly, why him? His life until now had been ordinary, mundane. Yet suddenly he felt as if fate had dragged him into a story far larger than himself, one where every step mattered. They reached the shuttle bay, a massive hangar filled with sleek ships. Most were designed for research, not combat, but she moved confidently toward one that looked smaller and more agile. She waved her hand over the console, and the ship's systems hummed to life. "Step in," she said. "I will show you everything, but we have to move quickly." Jason hesitated for a fraction of a second, then climbed aboard. The cockpit was filled with lights, levers, and displays he barely recognized. She guided him through the controls, her hands brushing his occasionally. Not intentionally, it seemed, but with a natural familiarity that made him acutely aware of her presence. "Focus," she said. "The controls are simple. You have instinct. Humans, you have something unique." He frowned. "Instinct? I don't even know what I'm doing." "You will," she replied, eyes fixed on the viewport. Outside, small ships streaked past, moving toward the station. Shadows against the stars, the enemies. Jason's heart pounded. He had never fired a weapon in space, never piloted a ship under attack, never faced anything even remotely like this. And yet, with her beside him, guiding, urging, explaining, he felt a spark of confidence. Not certainty, but possibility. "They're coming faster," she said. "I can't hold them off alone. You must fly. Trust yourself." Jason took a deep breath. He gripped the controls, palms sweaty. His mind raced, but something inside him clicked. The movements of the ship felt natural, almost like an extension of his own body. The hum of the engines, the rush of the stars, it was intoxicating, exhilarating, terrifying. Suddenly, one of the enemy ships streaked close, firing a burst of energy that rocked the shuttle. Jason yelped but maintained control. She leaned over him, guiding his hands, instructing. "Aim for the engines. Don't let them escape." He followed her instructions, heart hammering. With a sudden surge, he fired, and the enemy ship spiraled out of control, exploding in a flash of blue fire against the darkness of space. For a brief moment, silence fell. Then more ships appeared, more challenges, more danger. But Jason felt a strange, thrilling clarity. He was part of something bigger, something extraordinary. And beside him, the alien, his mysterious guide, was calm, resolute, ready to face anything. As they dodged, maneuvered, and fought through the first wave, Jason realized something important. This was no longer about him, about his routine, about his quiet life. This was about survival, courage, and trust. Trust in the unknown, trust in her, trust in himself. By the time they finally cleared the immediate threat, both were breathing heavily. Sparks flew from the control panels, the shuttle rocked, and the stars outside seemed alive with possibility and peril. She turned to him, her eyes gleaming with something he could not name, pride, relief, perhaps hope. "You're learning," she said softly. "And this is only the beginning. The real challenge lies ahead." Jason nodded, swallowing his fear. His world had shifted, forever changed. The quiet life he once knew was gone. In its place, a vast galaxy of dangers, mysteries, and wonders awaited. And for the first time in his life, he felt truly alive. Elias Ward stood at the edge of the docking platform and watched the stars move slowly beyond the transparent shield. He had traveled farther than any human before him, yet he felt calm, not proud, not afraid, just ready. The station around him was enormous, built by many species working together. Its walls curved like the inside of a shell, glowing softly with alien symbols and shifting lights. Tall beings walked past him, some with scales, some with fur, some with skin like polished stone. Their voices mixed into a strange music of clicks, tones, and echoes. Elias was small here, human, soft-bodied, no claws, no armor grown from bone, no psychic glow. On every known galactic scale, humans ranked low, weak muscles compared to others, short lives, no natural weapons. That was why he was here. He was Earth's representative to the Galactic Coalition, a group that decided trade, borders, and war. Most species expected little from him. Some thought humanity was a mistake, an accident of evolution that survived by luck. Elias felt their eyes on him as he walked forward, curious, dismissive, some amused. At the center chamber, a ring of elevated platforms waited. Each held a representative. Most were women, not by chance but by culture. In many advanced species, females held political and military authority. They were taller than Elias, broader, stronger. Their presence pressed down like gravity. One of them noticed him immediately. Her name was Saren of the Velari. Her skin shimmered faintly, changing color with emotion. She had seen war, ruled fleets, and broken enemies with her mind alone. When she looked at Elias, she expected to feel nothing. Instead, she frowned. The human walked without hesitation. His posture was relaxed but not careless. He did not lower his eyes. He did not raise his chin. He moved as if he belonged, even though he clearly did not. Saren felt a strange pull, like a thought she could not shake. Another representative noticed it too. High Strategist Lethara of the Koran, a towering figure with 4 arms and eyes like dark glass. She leaned forward slightly, studying Elias as he took his place. "He does not radiate strength," Lethara murmured through the translator field. "No," Saren replied quietly. "Yet something about him feels large." The session began. Questions came quickly. Why should humans be allowed full membership? What could Earth offer? What could it defend? Elias answered calmly. He did not boast. He did not beg. He spoke of cooperation, of learning, of responsibility. He admitted humanity's flaws openly, its history of war, fear, and mistakes. The chamber grew quiet. Many species hid weakness at all costs. Elias placed it on the table without shame. When challenged, he did not argue loudly, he listened. He responded clearly. When insulted, he did not react. When threatened, he did not flinch. Saren felt it again. That pull, stronger now, it made no sense. After the session ended, Elias was dismissed with polite indifference. He bowed slightly, turned, and walked away. Behind him, whispers began. He stood before the Koran without fear. He admitted failure and did not collapse. He feels steady. Saren watched him leave and realized something unsettling. She wanted to see him again. That night's cycle, the station suffered a power failure in one of its outer rings. An industrial habitat lost gravity, sending hundreds of workers into chaos. Emergency teams hesitated, radiation leaks, unstable structure. Elias did not wait, he ran. By the time security realized what he was doing, he was already inside the damaged ring, boots magnetized, moving through spinning debris. He helped workers stabilize themselves, guided them to safety, and sealed a breach manually while alarms screamed around him. His suit cracked. Radiation levels rose. He kept working. Saren arrived moments later with her own guards, psychic shields flaring. She expected to find bodies. Instead, she found Elias kneeling beside an injured alien child, holding the torn metal apart with shaking hands so others could pull the child free. His face was pale. Sweat floated around him in small spheres. His hands trembled. Yet he smiled at the child and spoke gently, even though she could see the pain tearing through him. Something in Saren snapped. This human was breaking and refusing to stop. When medical teams finally pulled Elias away, he lost consciousness. His body gave in only after everyone else was safe. Saren stood still long after he was gone. Later, she visited the medical wing. Humans healed slowly compared to many species. Fragile bones, vulnerable organs. Elias lay still, wrapped in soft fields, breathing steadily. Saren felt her emotions shift colors rapidly: confusion, curiosity, concern. "This makes no sense," she whispered. Another voice answered her. "I thought the same." Lethara stood nearby, arms folded. "You were watching him too," Saren said. "Yes," Lethara replied. "I cannot explain it. His species should not inspire this response." They stood in silence, observing the human. "He has something," Lethara continued slowly. "Something big," Saren nodded. When Elias woke, he found two powerful alien leaders waiting for him. He struggled to sit up. "I'm sorry if I broke protocol." Saren tilted her head. "You saved lives that were not your own." "Why?" Elias shrugged weakly. "They needed help." Lethara studied him closely. "You knew the risk." "Yes." "And you went anyway." "Yes." "Why?" Elias looked confused by the question. "Because someone had to." That answer stayed with them long after he was released. Over the following cycles, Elias continued his duties. He worked longer than required. He listened more than he spoke. When conflict arose between species, he volunteered as mediator, walking into hostile rooms with nothing but words and patience. Slowly, more alien women noticed. A Velari scientist who had never trusted outsiders found herself explaining her life's work to him for hours. A Koran captain invited him to observe training, surprised when he asked thoughtful questions instead of making excuses for human weakness. They began to feel it too, not attraction, not desire, something deeper. Being around Elias made them feel grounded, focused, seen. Saren finally admitted the truth to herself during a private council meeting. "I think I am becoming dependent on his presence," she said quietly. Lethara's eyes widened slightly. "As am I." Neither felt shame, only confusion and a growing need to understand. Elias, unaware of the effect he was having, continued forward, carrying the quiet weight of humanity with him. And somewhere in the vast station, a dangerous idea began to spread. If one human could do this, what would happen when more arrived? The days after the accident changed the rhythm of the station. Elias Ward returned to his duties with a slight limp and a medical brace along his ribs, but otherwise the same as before. He did not speak of what he had done. He did not ask for recognition. When others thanked him, he nodded and moved on. That quiet behavior made the effect stronger. Saren noticed it first in herself. She began adjusting her schedule without meaning to, aligning meetings so they crossed with Elias' movements. She told herself it was strategy, curiosity, duty. Yet each time she saw him walking through the corridors, a strange calm settled inside her. Her species lived with constant emotional intensity. The Velari felt deeply and quickly. War burned hot in them. Politics was sharp and exhausting, but near the human her thoughts slowed, focused. It felt like relief. Lethara experienced something similar, though she resisted it more. The Koran believed in discipline and structure. Dependence was weakness. Still, she found herself inviting Elias into discussions she once would have kept closed. Not because he was human, because when he listened, conflict softened. A border dispute between two minor species nearly turned violent during one council session. Voices rose. Claws scraped stone. Psychic pressure filled the chamber. Elias spoke once. He did not shout. He did not threaten. He asked each side to explain not what they wanted, but what they feared losing. The room changed. By the end, weapons were lowered. Negotiations resumed. Afterward, one of the alien commanders stared at Elias in open disbelief. "You manipulated us," she accused. Elias shook his head. "No, I just listened." Word spread. Soon, Elias' presence was requested more often than required. He became a common figure in places of tension, mediation chambers, military planning rooms, research labs struggling with impossible problems. Always the same result: progress. Saren began to feel uneasy. Velari culture taught that obsession crept in quietly. What began as fascination could become dependence, then loss of self. She had seen entire civilizations collapse because of it. She called a private meeting with Lethara and two other senior leaders, Visira of the Thal, a species known for emotional distance, and Keelan, a battle-hardened matron admiral. They gathered in a quiet observation hall overlooking the stars. "This concerns the human," Saren said directly. No one pretended not to understand. "He is becoming a stabilizing variable," Lethara said. "That alone is dangerous." Visira tilted her smooth, reflective head. I have analyzed productivity metrics. Conflict resolution improves by 37% when he is present. That is not normal, Keelan said. No species should have that effect without coercion. Saren folded her hands. And yet none of us feel coerced. Silence followed. I will say this plainly, Saren continued. I find myself seeking his presence. That is unacceptable for a Velari leader. The others exchanged glances. You are not alone, Visira admitted. I feel unsettled when he is absent. Lethara exhaled slowly. Then we must determine whether this is manipulation or something inherent to humans. They decided to observe more closely. Elias, meanwhile, faced a different challenge. Humanity had sent a second delegation, military advisors and corporate observers. They were alarmed by reports of Elias' growing influence. One of them, Colonel Mason, confronted him directly. You're becoming a symbol, Mason said. That's dangerous. Elias frowned. I'm just doing my job. That's the problem, Mason replied. You're changing how they see us too fast. Elias understood the fear. Humans had learned painfully that attention could turn into hostility overnight, but he also saw something else. They're not afraid of us, Elias said quietly. They're afraid of themselves around us. Mason did not like that answer. Not long after, the crisis began. A deep space mining colony went silent near an unstable region of space known for gravity distortions. Initial probes vanished. Automated signals returned only static and strange echoes. Several species proposed quarantine. Elias volunteered to join the investigation team. This is not your role, Saren said sharply when she heard. Someone has to go, Elias replied, and humans handle uncertainty well. That is not a compliment, she said. He smiled faintly. I'll take it anyway. Against her better judgment, Saren insisted on joining the mission. Lethara and Keelan followed. The ship was a multi-species vessel, tense with unease as it entered the distorted region. Instruments failed. Gravity shifted unpredictably. Some crew members panicked. Elias stayed calm. When the ship shuddered, he anchored himself and helped others. When communications failed, he adapted. He spoke reassuringly, even when he had no answers. The mining colony emerged from the distortion like a ghost. Structures twisted, lights flickered. No movement. The team docked cautiously. Inside, they found survivors traumatized, exhausted, many injured. The distortion had warped time perception. For them, weeks had passed in terror and isolation. Alien medics struggled. The survivors were unresponsive, locked in fear. Elias knelt beside one trembling miner and spoke softly. Simple words, steady tone. The miner focused on his voice. Others followed. Saren watched in silence as panic slowly loosened its grip. During evacuation, a sudden surge collapsed part of the station. A heavy beam pinned Saren's leg. Pain flashed white through her senses. Before guards could react, Elias was there, bracing the beam with his body. Don't, she warned. Your bones. I know, he said through clenched teeth. Hold still. The beam shifted just enough for her to be freed. Elias collapsed immediately after. Back on the ship, medics worked frantically. His injuries were severe, internal bleeding, cracked spine. Saren stood outside the medical bay, her emotions burning too bright to control. This is beyond fascination, she said to Lethara. This is becoming necessity. Lethara did not argue. When Elias woke days later, the ship was already returning to the station. Saren visited him alone. You are damaging yourself, she said. He met her gaze. So did you, she hesitated. Why do you do this? Elias thought for a long moment. Because if I don't, then everything I am doesn't matter. That answer shook her more than any psychic strike. Back at the station, reactions were mixed. Some species celebrated the success of the rescue. Others grew afraid. A faction within the coalition proposed restrictions on human involvement. Psychological audits, presence limits. Humans are altering decision-making patterns, one delegate argued. This is influence without consent. Elias attended the hearing. He listened as concerns were voiced. He did not interrupt. When given the chance to speak, he said only this: "We don't want to control anyone. If our presence helps, use it. If it scares you, we will step back." The chamber waited for more. That was all he said. The vote was postponed. Afterward, Saren found him standing alone again, watching the stars. "You would leave," she said softly. "If asked," he replied. She felt something tighten inside her. "Then we must understand this," she said, "before fear decides for us." Elias nodded. Neither of them noticed how many others were quietly watching the human and wondering how something so fragile could feel so overwhelmingly strong. And deeper still, the galaxy was beginning to sense an uncomfortable truth. Whatever humans carried with them was not fading.